August, 1935. A sticky Harlem night, 10 minutes before midnight. Outside the Cotton Club, a black Packard idled at the curb, engine ticking like a countdown. Cigarette smoke curled out the windows. Inside the club, horns screamed, heels tapped, glasses clinked. Nobody noticed the man standing across the street. Tall, broad-shouldered, hat pulled low. Bumpy Johnson didn't move. He didn't blink. He just watched the door. Because 20 minutes earlier, something had happened that couldn't be taken back. Inside a private room upstairs, with whiskey sweating on the table and a pistol laid out in plain sight, Dutch Schultz laughed. Loud, drunk, careless. He'd leaned forward, pointed a finger, and said the word. Not shouted, not angry, smiling. The room went silent. Even the music downstairs felt like it dipped. A waiter froze with a tray in his hands. One of Schultz's men cleared his throat, slow and nervous. The word hung there, thick, poisoned. Dutch Schultz didn't notice the change. He was too busy enjoying himself. That was the moment the clock started. Because the man Schultz insulted wasn't some frightened nobody. It wasn't a gambler begging for mercy. It was the man who kept order in half of Harlem, whether the police liked it or not. Bumpy Johnson didn't raise his voice, didn't threaten, didn't reach for the gun. He stood up slowly, chair legs scraped the floor. Every head turned. He looked at Schultz once, just once. "Mind your mouth," Bumpy said, quiet, flat. Schultz smirked. He took a sip. Or what? That was it. Bumpy walked out. No slam, no curse, just footsteps down the stairs. 1, 2, 3, each step steady, controlled. Outside, the summer air felt heavy, like rain that refused to fall. Bumpy lit a cigarette. His hand didn't shake, but his jaw was tight. The flame flared, then died. Across the street, a newsboy yelled late editions. A couple laughed too loud. Somewhere, glass shattered. Bumpy exhaled smoke. He already knew what this meant. In Harlem, insults weren't just words. They were challenges. And this one wasn't aimed at a man. It was aimed at everyone watching him walk away. Behind him, the Cotton Club door opened. Schultz's men spilled out, joking, loose, careless. One of them glanced across the street. Their eyes met Bumpy's. The joking stopped. That man felt it, the shift. The air going cold. Because when Bumpy Johnson was disrespected, he didn't rush. He didn't swing wild. He waited. And when he moved with purpose. Within 7 days, 8 men would be dead. Gunshots in hallways. Blood on barroom floors. Bodies found stiff before sunrise. But right now, right here, it hadn't happened yet. Right now, Bumpy stood alone under a flickering street lamp, smoke drifting around his face, already deciding who would pay first. And Dutch Schultz? He was still laughing. He had no idea what he'd just started. The first man in danger didn't know it yet. His name was Vincent Vinnie Call. Young, sharp suit, always smiling like he had nothing to lose. Vinnie worked for Dutch Schultz, but not the way most men did. He wasn't muscle, wasn't a trigger puller. He was the one who talked, collected numbers, leaned on shop owners, promised protection with one hand, took money with the other. And tonight, he was walking down Lenox Avenue like the world belonged to him. Streetlights reflected off fresh rain. His shoes clicked fast, too fast. He kept touching the inside of his jacket, checking the envelope tucked there. Cash, Harlem money. Money that didn't belong to Dutch Schultz. Money that came from Bumpy's side of the street. Vinnie told himself it was temporary, just a few weeks. enough to get ahead, enough to buy out from under Schultz someday. He crossed in front of Small's Paradise, music spilling onto the sidewalk, laughter, clinking glasses, the smell of fried food and cheap whiskey. Normal Harlem night. But Vinny felt it in his chest, that pressure like someone was watching. He stopped, looked back. Nothing, just shadows. A couple arguing, a man sweeping a storefront. He kept walking. What Vinny didn't know, what nobody had told him, was that Bumpy Johnson didn't go after the loud ones first. He went after the weak link, and Vinny Call was weak in one way that mattered. Fear. Earlier that evening, before Schultz ever opened his mouth, Vinny had been in the Cotton Club hallway. He'd heard laughter from behind the door, heard Schultz drinking, bragging. Then he heard the word. Vinny froze. He knew what that meant. He'd seen it before. Disrespect like that didn't end in shouting. It ended in funerals. When Bumpy walked past him on the stairs, Vinny couldn't meet his eyes. Bumpy stopped. Just long enough. "You work for him?" Bumpy asked. Vinny swallowed. "Yes, sir." Bumpy nodded once. "That's unfortunate." That was all. No threat, no warning. But it stayed with Vinny the whole walk home. Now turning onto a darker block, the noise faded. The music disappeared. Just footsteps. His own breathing. The envelope felt heavier with every step. He told himself he was overthinking it. Bumpy had bigger problems. Dutch Schultz was the target, not him, right? Vinny reached his building, old brick, narrow entrance, a single light flickering above the door. He fumbled for his keys. That's when he heard footsteps behind him, slow, measured, not rushing. Vinny didn't turn. He unlocked the door, pushed it open. A hand grabbed his shoulder, hard. Vinny gasped, spun around. A man stood there, big, scar running down one cheek, hat low, no smile. "You dropped something," the man said. Vinny looked down. The envelope lay on the wet sidewalk, split open, bills visible. I, Vinny stammered. The man bent down, picked it up, weighed it in his hand. "This Harlem money?" he asked quietly. Vinny's mouth went dry. "Yes." The man leaned in close. Vinny could smell tobacco and sweat. "You should return it," he said, "tonight." Vinny nodded fast. Too fast. "Yes, of course I will." The man straightened, stepped back into the shadows. "One more thing," he said. Vinny looked up. "Mr. Johnson doesn't like to be embarrassed." Then the man was gone. Vinny stood there shaking, keys still in his hand, heart pounding so loud he thought the whole block could hear it. He rushed inside, slammed the door, locked it. Upstairs in his tiny apartment, Vinny dumped the cash onto the table. His hands wouldn't stop moving, counting, recounting, sweating. He had a choice. Bring the money back to Bumpy, or run to Dutch Schultz and tell him everything. Outside, somewhere down the block, a car engine started, and Vinny Call made the wrong decision. Vinny Call didn't sleep. The radiator hissed like it was whispering secrets. The ceiling fan rattled. Every sound felt louder than it should have been. By sunrise, he'd made up his mind. He took the envelope, stuffed it back inside his jacket, and headed downtown. By noon, Vinny was standing outside a low, ugly building off East 10th Street. Dutch Schultz's place. No sign, no noise. Just two men at the door who didn't smile. They searched him, took his gun, took his hat. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and boiled coffee. Dutch Schultz sat at the table, sleeves rolled, tie loose. A ledger lay open, a revolver sat beside it. Dutch looked up. "Well," he said, You look like hell." Vinny tried to speak. Nothing came out. Dutch sighed. "Sit." Vinny sat. His knee bounced. He couldn't stop it. Dutch noticed. "Spit it out." Vinny leaned forward, voice low. "He knows." Dutch frowned. "Who knows?" "Bumpy Johnson." The room went quiet. Dutch's fingers stopped tapping the table. "What about him?" Vinny swallowed. "I was in the club. I heard what you said." Dutch's mouth curled. "And?" "And he spoke to me outside." Dutch leaned back. "What did he say?" Vinny hesitated. "Said it was unfortunate I worked for you." One of Schultz's men chuckled. Dutch didn't. He stared at Vinny for a long moment, then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "So," Dutch said softly, "you're scared." Vinny nodded. "Yes." Dutch leaned forward now. The chair creaked. "You think the Harlem hoodlum scares me?" "No," Vinny said quickly. "No, sir, I just—" Dutch slammed his hand on the table. The gun jumped. "You just what?" Dutch snapped. "You thinking of switching sides?" Vinny's mouth opened, closed. Dutch stood, walked around the table slow, each step heavy. "You know what I hear?" Dutch said. "I hear a man who wants protection." He stopped behind Vinny, put a hand on his shoulder. "You belong to me," Dutch whispered. "You don't get scared. You don't get ideas." Vinny nodded again, too fast. "Yes, yes, sir." Dutch squeezed harder. "Good." Then he let go. "Here's what you're going to do," Dutch said, walking back to his seat. "You're going to go back uptown. You're going to tell Bumpy you're done skimming, that you're loyal, that this whole thing was nothing." Vinny blinked. "And if he doesn't believe me?" Dutch smiled again. "Then you'll find out who's really in charge." Vinny left shaking. Back in Harlem, the heat was worse. The streets felt tighter. Eyes everywhere. He walked into Small's Paradise just before dusk. Music thumped. Sweat and perfume hung in the air. At the bar, a man waited. Dark suit, calm face, Bumpy Johnson. Vinny stopped a few feet away. His throat burned. Bumpy didn't turn at first. He finished his drink, set the glass down. "You look tired," Bumpy said. "Yes, sir," Vinny replied. Bumpy turned now, looked him up and down. "You bring something for me?" Vinny nodded, pulled the envelope out, set it on the bar. "I'm done," Vinny said, words spilling. "No more skimming, no more mistakes. I swear." Bumpy didn't touch the envelope. He studied Vinny's face, the sweat, the twitching eye, the shaking hands. "You talked to Dutch today?" Bumpy asked. Vinny froze, just for a second. "Yes," he said. Bumpy smiled. A small smile? Cold. "That's what I thought." Vinny felt hope spark. Maybe, just maybe, this would end quietly. Bumpy leaned in close. "Go home," he said. "Get some rest." Vinny exhaled. Relief washed over him. He didn't see the man standing behind him. Didn't hear the chair scrape. Didn't notice Bumpy finally slide the envelope closer. As Vinny turned to leave, Bumpy spoke again. "Oh, and Vinny?" Vinny stopped. Bumpy's voice was calm, almost gentle. "You should have brought a gun." Vinny turned, and the music kept playing. The gunshot didn't come. That was the twist. Instead, a hand clamped over Vinny Cole's mouth, hard. His head snapped back. The room spun. Someone yanked his arms behind him. The music from the band kept pounding, horns screaming like nothing was wrong. Vinny struggled, shoes scraping, breath panicking. Bumpy didn't move. He sat at the bar, calm as ever, watching the mirror behind the bottles. Two men dragged Vinny through the back hallway. Past stacked chairs, past crates of liquor. The smell of beer gave way to damp concrete. A door opened, then slammed. Silence. The back room was small, one bare bulb swinging, shadows jumping on the walls. They shoved Vinny into a chair, tied his wrists tight. Rope burned into his skin. The man with the scar stood in front of him. Same voice, same eyes. "You scream," the man said. "You lose teeth." Vinny nodded fast, tears already pooling. The door creaked open again. Bumpy Johnson stepped inside. No jacket now, sleeves rolled. Calm face, no anger. That was the worst part. Bumpy pulled up a chair, sat directly across from Vinny. "Dutch tell you to come here?" Bumpy asked. Vinny tried to speak. His mouth was dry. "Yes." Bumpy nodded slowly. "Dutch tell you to lie to me?" Vinny hesitated. The scarred man stepped closer. "Yes," Vinny blurted. "Yes, he did." Bumpy leaned back, studied the ceiling, like he already knew the answer. "Here's what you don't understand," Bumpy said. "This wasn't about the money." Vinny frowned. "It wasn't?" Bumpy leaned forward now. Close enough Vinny could smell his cologne. "I knew Dutch would run his mouth," Bumpy said. "I knew he'd send someone." Vinny's heart dropped. "I also knew," Bumpy continued, "he'd send the one man too scared to keep a secret." The room felt smaller. "You were never the mistake," Bumpy said. "You were the test." Vinny shook his head. No, I just..." Bumpy raised a hand. Silence. "You walked into that club already marked," Bumpy said. "Dutch just didn't know it yet." The scarred man reached into his coat, pulled out a notebook. Names, numbers, addresses. Dutch Schultz's Harlem operations. Vinny's handwriting. Bumpy took the notebook, flipped through it slowly. "You see this?" Bumpy said. "This tells me everything I need." Vinny's breathing turned ragged. "You don't have to..." Bumpy stood. "Dutch thinks this ends with you," he said. "That's the mistake." He turned to the scarred man. "Take him to 132nd, Bumpy said. "Let him walk." Vinny's eyes widened. "Walk?" The rope was cut. His hands burned as blood rushed back. They pulled him up, half dragged him outside. Rain had started falling, light but steady. The street was empty. They pushed Vinny forward. "Go," the scarred man said. Vinny ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until his lungs burned. He didn't see the car pull out behind him. Didn't hear the engine keep its distance. Didn't know he was being followed. 2 blocks later, Vinny slowed, bent over, gasping. That's when headlights washed over him. The car stopped. A window rolled down. Dutch Schultz leaned out. "So," Dutch said, "how'd it go?" Vinny froze. Relief flooded his body. I gave him the money. He bought it." Dutch studied him. "You sure?" "Yes," Vinny said. "He told me to go home." Dutch smiled. Then he noticed Vinny's wrists. Red. Raw. Dutch's smile faded. "You lying to me, kid?" Vinny shook his head. "No, I swear." Dutch stared at him a second longer. Then he nodded. "Get in." Vinny climbed into the back seat. The car pulled off. What Vinny didn't know, what Dutch Schultz never suspected, was that Bumpy Johnson wanted this meeting. Because while Vinny sat shaking in the back seat, trying to convince himself he was safe, 3 other cars were already moving. One toward a speakeasy on 116th. One toward a numbers den on 7th. One toward a quiet apartment where Dutch kept a trusted gunman. Bumpy didn't need Vinny dead yet. He needed him breathing. Because a man who thinks he survived, that man opens doors, and tonight Harlem was about to erupt. The first body hit the floor at 2:17 a.m., a narrow hallway, peeling paint, one bare bulb buzzing overhead. Dutch Schultz's gunman, Big Eddie, never saw it coming. He was halfway through counting cash when the door behind him opened. Soft. Careful. Eddie turned. Too late. The gun on the table never left the table. One shot, low, wet. Eddie collapsed forward, blood spreading across the money he'd been so proud of. Across Harlem, it started happening fast. A numbers runner stepped out of a back door on 7th Avenue. Heard footsteps, turned his head. Gunshot echoed off brick. He dropped where he stood. At a speakeasy near 116th, two of Dutch's men laughed too loud at the bar. One reached for his drink. The other never finished his sentence. Glass shattered. People screamed. Smoke filled the room. By dawn, 5 men were dead, and Dutch Schultz still didn't understand why. He sat in his car, parked under a streetlight, hands clenched tight around the steering wheel. Vinnie Call sat beside him, silent, staring straight ahead. Something felt wrong. Too quiet. Dutch lit a cigarette. The flame shook. "You sure Johnson let you walk?" Dutch asked again. Vinnie nodded. "Yes." Dutch studied his face, then his wrists, then the rear-view mirror. A car sat back there. Far enough to be polite. Close enough to be deliberate. Dutch's jaw tightened. He started the engine. The car behind them moved too. Dutch took a hard left. So did the other car. Another turn, same result. Dutch slammed the brakes, jumped out, gun in hand. The other car stopped. One man stepped out. Calm, big, scar on his cheek. "Evening," the man said. Dutch raised the gun. "Where's Johnson?" The man smiled. "Busy." Another car pulled in behind Dutch, then another. Dutch spun, too many. Vinnie's heart pounded. "Dutch!" "Shut up!" Dutch barked. Dutch fired, missed. The scarred man didn't rush, didn't flinch. He raised his gun. Dutch realized something then, too late. This wasn't a fight, it was a message. The shot hit Dutch high in the chest, knocked him back against his car. The cigarette dropped, burning out on the pavement. Dutch slid down slowly, breathing hard, blood soaking his shirt. The scarred man walked closer, stood over him. "Mr. Johnson sends regards," he said. Dutch tried to speak. Couldn't. Another shot. Silence. Vinnie screamed. Hands grabbed him from behind, dragged him out of the car. He fought, kicked, cried. They shoved him forward, across the street, under a flickering lamp. Bumpy Johnson stood waiting, hands in his pockets, face unreadable. Vinnie collapsed at his feet. "I did what you wanted," Vinnie sobbed. "I did everything." Bumpy looked down at him. "Yes," Bumpy said. "You did." Bumpy nodded once. The scarred man raised his gun. Vinnie looked up, eyes wide, mouth open. The shot echoed down the empty street. When the sound faded, Bumpy turned away. Behind him, blood ran along the curb, mixing with rainwater, disappearing into the gutter. 8 men dead in 7 days. And the night finally went quiet. Morning came slow. Gray light crawled over Harlem like it was afraid of what it might see. On 132nd Street, a milkman stopped short. A body lay half in the gutter, half on the curb. Blood dried dark against the concrete. He backed away without a word. At 7th Avenue, police stood outside a shuttered storefront. No tape yet. Just 2 uniforms staring down at a chalk outline that hadn't been there yesterday. 8 men, 7 days. Nobody rushed to talk. Inside Small's Paradise, the band packed up early. No jokes, no laughter. A trumpet case snapped shut too loud, and everyone flinched. At the bar, the mirror behind the bottles still showed faint streaks, where someone had wiped blood in a hurry. A bartender scrubbed the same spot over and over. His hands shook. He didn't look up when a detective asked questions. "I didn't see nothing," he said. Flat. Final. Across Harlem, shop owners opened late. Some didn't open at all. Doors stayed locked. Shades stayed drawn. Everyone knew who had won, and everyone knew the cost. By noon, Bumpy Johnson sat alone in a quiet back room, jacket back on, hat resting beside him. A cup of coffee cooled untouched. Big Sam stood near the door, silent, watchful. "You good?" Big Sam asked. Bumpy nodded once. Outside, a woman cried somewhere down the block. Long, broken. The sound carried through the open window. Bumpy closed his eyes for a moment. 8 men were gone. Some deserved it. Some were just close enough to get burned. That part never showed up in the headlines. Later that afternoon, a messenger arrived. Young kid. Couldn't stop swallowing. "Police asking questions," the kid said. "Downtown boys, too." Bumpy waved him off. "They attached to noise," Bumpy said. "This will quiet." Big Sam hesitated. "And Schultz?" Bumpy opened his eyes. "He spoke his last insult," he said. That night the street stayed still. No gunshots, no sirens, just the hum of streetlights and the smell of rain on hot pavement. People walked faster, kept their heads down, minded their mouths. Because everyone understood one thing now, clear as the bloodstains that hadn't washed away yet. Some lines could be crossed. Some words could not. And once crossed, there was no walking back. Bumpy stood by the window, watching shadows move under the lamps. For the first time all week, his hands were steady, but his eyes were tired. This was the price, and Harlem would carry it long after the bodies were buried. By the end of that month, Harlem sounded different, not louder, quieter. Men talked softer in doorways. Arguments ended early, guns stayed tucked away unless absolutely necessary. It wasn't fear that changed things. It was memory. Everybody remembered how fast it happened, how one insult turned into 8 funerals, how bodies stacked up before anyone could catch their breath. Club owners changed seating arrangements. Numbers runners stopped freelancing. Messengers repeated every word exactly as told. And the biggest change? Nobody laughed in private rooms anymore, because laughter had been what started it. Bumpy Johnson never claimed credit, never made speeches, never explained himself. He didn't have to. The streets adjusted on their own. But there was a cost that didn't show on the surface. 3 weeks later, a woman stood outside a church on 125th Street dressed in black, holding a boy's hand too tight. The kid kept asking questions she wouldn't answer. That boy would grow up remembering the week his father never came home. Bumpy saw scenes like that from a distance. Always from a distance. Power wasn't what stayed with him. Silence was. Late one night, standing under the same kind of street lamp where it all began, Bumpy paused. Listened to the hum, the empty air, no music, no shouting. Just quiet. He adjusted his hat and kept walking. Because the streets were calm again. But calm, he knew, never lasted. And somewhere out there, another man would eventually forget the lesson. If this story shocked you, wait until you hear about Bumpy's most dangerous enemy, the one who almost ended him for good. Drop a comment. Was the price worth it? Subscribe for the next story. This one gets even darker.